Coming up on today's show.
They're just worn out from having to decide about their stuff or their tasks on a regular basis.
Because we want to help you not be fatigued, we are going to give you some rules to live by so that decision making can't be so overwhelming.
If something makes you sad, feel guilty, or angry, you got to let it go.
Decision fatigue, today on Keeping You Organized. Well, hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. Today we're going to talk about decision making and the fatigue that it causes us. But because we want to help you not be fatigued, we are going to give you some rules to live by so that decision making can't be so overwhelming. And we're bringing on a brand new podcast guest. It is Perry Kirsch from neat-freak.com. And Perry, welcome to Keeping You Organized.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate you having me.
Well, Perry, we know you have this list of, you're a professional organizer, so professional organizers have lists. Give us these 10 things to live by, rules to live by, to help us in our decision making.
Well, I think I've been working as a professional organizer for about 14 years now. And a common thread that I have seen with so many of my clients is they're just worn out from having to decide about their stuff or their tasks on a regular basis. And I think most organizers would agree that oftentimes we're called in when people hit that roadblock of just saying, like, I just can't do this anymore. And so much of that seems to be around their daily need to make decisions about stuff. And I think if anybody's walked through the aisle of a grocery store recently, you realize we just have so many choices in life. And that trickles down into our houses and into our offices. And so I think that one of the things that organizers can help our clients do is sort of push through some of that decision making and help them get on that right track. Barbara Hemphill, I think, most famously said that clutter is defined as delayed decisions. Yes. And so, I like to help my clients push through that and make those decisions.
Well, now, if you're a professional organizer, I'm sure you have some kind of list, right? Or some rules or something to follow that's in a very orderly fashion. Don't let me down.
Yeah, I will not let you down. Okay. You know, organizers, we love some bullet points. Yes. So, one of the things that I often think about when it comes to decision fatigue is that if we have some kind of rules to live by, it can minimize the number of decisions that we have to make all the time. And I'll give you just a personal example of this. This is going to make me sound like a very boring person, but every morning I get up and I make the exact same thing for breakfast every day. And this is kind of one of my morning rules. I'm just not going to think about it. I don't want to have to decide, do I want to eat oatmeal or toast or cereal? I have the exact same thing every day. I have a 6-minute soft-boiled egg. I have a half an avocado, sprinkle it with some pumpkin seeds, and I have 2 cups of coffee. And I do that because I don't want to have to make a decision about my breakfast. It's kind of my morning rule. And what I have found is that frees me up from a creative standpoint, from a productive standpoint, so that I'm not wasting that decision-making energy every morning. And with my clients, I've done some similar things. I've come up with sort of my Perry's top 10 rules, organizing rules to live by. And I'd be happy to share some of those with you today in the hopes that if somebody is just feeling exhausted from making decisions, a couple of these rules might help them out.
Okay, well, let's get started right away. How about rule number 1?
All right. So my first rule to live by is, whenever possible, to buy quality over quantity. And this is because I believe that there really is such a thing as too much of a not so good thing. And I find this with my clients all the time. We'll open up their closet and we'll see that they have, 6 or 8 of the same sweater in multiple colors, sometimes in multiple sizes, because they're so cheap. Clothing, in our country, it's pretty inexpensive. And so I find that what happens for a lot of my clients is they tend to buy too much of stuff that's not necessarily great quality and surround themselves with that. And that's just one of those things that makes it harder to make a decision in the morning. What am I going to get dressed? What am I going to wear? And so if people look for those opportunities to buy quality over quantity, they're going to have less. And I think that's going to help them to make those decisions quicker because they're not going to have so many things to sort through. And so that's just that's my first sort of rule to live by. Whenever possible, look for those opportunities to buy quality over quantity.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people probably, because they have the decision fatigue, they can't decide which maybe color, so they get 3 colors. Of the same thing, and there's pros and cons to that too. But well, that's awesome. All right, well, let's move now on to rule number 2.
Okay, so my rule number 2 is if something makes you sad, feel guilty, or angry, you got to let it go. And I encourage people to apply this to things, to tasks, and even to people in their lives. And I won't go into the people in our lives, that's probably for another podcast, but particularly for things and tasks that are in our lives. And I do find that for so many of my clients, they've, kind of held on to a lot of things that bring them negative feelings, negative energy. They say yes to things that just because they feel guilty about it. And they surround themselves with objects and stuff in their homes or in their offices that don't necessarily give them that great feeling of happiness or joy. And so when I'm working with my clients, I really try to help them set some limits on that. So they're not having to make decisions about every single item, but these things that just bring bad energy into their life, let them go. If you've got that box of letters from your ex sitting around, we're going to burn those in the fire. We're not going to hang on to that stuff that doesn't bring about a sense of positivity.
Now, I think this could be a whole nother podcast, so we're not going to go real deep on point number 2 here, especially when it comes to relationships and decisions surrounding those. I totally get where you're coming from on that. So how about number 3?
So number 3, this is a little bit related to number 2, but when in doubt, just say no. Trust me, I think this can save a whole lot of headaches. And this is where I try to encourage people to, kind of push the pause button sometimes when it comes to taking on opportunities or taking on stuff. And as much as possible to get comfortable saying the word no. And saying no is hard for people. It really is. And particularly if they're being asked to do something by someone they care about, or they're being offered something by someone in their family and they're having a hard time sort of saying, oh, that doesn't really fit in my house right now. So what I encourage my clients to do is to practice saying no. And if no feels too forceful to them, to at least get comfortable saying, you know what, let me think about that and get back to you. Again, hit the pause button on that conversation so they can really assess their situation and say, you know what, do I have room on my to-do list to take this task on? If I say yes to this, am I going to end up saying no to something else that's a higher priority to me? Or before, someone offers to give you a piece of hand-me-down furniture that was a family heirloom, to be able to just say, let me look around and make sure I've really got space for that in my life. The power of no to me is just such an important tool in keeping us from getting overwhelmed and having to take on more than we can really handle.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break now, and when we come back, we'll get a couple more of these tips, and we are with Perry Kirsch from neat-freak.com talking about decision fatigue, and we'll be right back. Get organized now at myorganize.life. Need to turn those piles into files? We've got you covered. Hundreds of organizing products in a dazzling array of colors and sizes. There's an organizing solution for you. Shop online and they're delivered right to your office. Get organized now. Go to myorganize.life. That's myorganize.life. Get organized now at myorganize.life. We're back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about decision fatigue, how we can get overwhelmed by making so many decisions, and thankfully our guest Perry Kirsch from neat-freak.com has 10 rules to live by. And Perry, before the break we did number 1 through 3. Let's move on now to tip number 4.
We are on number 4. Okay. And this is just a real simple one, and it's going to make me sound like your mother. But make your bed every single day. And this is one of those things that I just kind of say should be a non-negotiable. It's not, I don't really have time. I'm rushing out the door. I don't want to do this. Make your bed every day. And this is something I've tried to teach my kids, and I'm going to tell you, they're not great at doing it. They have not mastered the hospital corners yet, but it's still something that they do every single day. And for me, it's one of those things that takes a room from looking a little rough to really not half bad in about 3 minutes or less.
Right.
So it's just one of those things. I say do it every day. When I'm working in residential situations, a lot of times with clients, we'll start by organizing some space in their bedroom, because to me, it's that space that's sort of sacred. It's personal space in your home. It's also the first thing you see when you wake up in the morning, and it's the last thing you see when you go to bed at night.
Right.
And if that space is kind of a disaster, it's going to make you feel not great about the place where you live. Right. So that's just one of my rules to live by, and I think it's something that should just be a no-brainer.
That is an awesome rule to live by. Now, let's move on to rule number 5.
Number 5, if it's going to take 5 minutes or less, do it right now. And I mean, seriously, like if you're watching this podcast and you've got a nagging task that is going to take 5 minutes or less, hit the pause button and go just do it right now. And the reason that I make this one of my rules to live by is that I think for so many people, they've got these long to-do lists with all these little nagging tasks that they kind of kick that can down the road over and over and over again. And it takes time to transfer those things to your calendar the next day, or to change the date on it in your Google Calendar. If you keep kind of kicking these little short, quick and dirty tasks down the road. And so I just encourage people to look for 2 or 3 of those 5-minute tasks on a daily basis and just get to it, get her done, do it right now.
Absolutely.
Because they can be the types of things that they accumulate over time. They get really overwhelming. And again, it just becomes one more thing that's sort of cluttering your mind and keeping you from being able to be clear and decisive and creative and productive in the way that you really want to be.
All right, Perry, well, I already see that we're not going to be able to get through all 10. Are you willing to come back on our next episode?
I'd be happy to.
Awesome. Well, before we go, let people know how they get a hold of you and what kind of services you offer.
Sure. So I am primarily a residential organizer. I also do some time management work with clients. I work both hands-on with clients. I also do some virtual work across the country. The best way to reach me is via my website, which is just neat-freak.com. There's a contact form on there, and it's really easy to find me.
Well, we never asked you what location or what state or city you live in for your hands-on stuff.
Yes. So I'm located in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And you've got a bit of a fan club here in North Carolina, John.
We do, and we know who we're talking about, but
yes, you have a couple of fans.
We
here.
Actually do. I don't know what it is. What is it about North Carolina and organizers? Maybe it's just an organized state or something, huh?
It is, and we're very friendly here in the South. So
that's awesome. Okay, well, folks, I think now you've heard the first 5. You've got to come back next time for the other 5, so don't get fatigued by that decision. Make it an easy decision and come back next time right here on Keeping You Organized.